that's the video where I talked about Mr. Daniels. It seemed to be a very popular video. Thank you. I guess I'll just talk about this subject briefly. Mr. Daniels, amongst other people, and I briefly mentioned this in that video, are part of what they call the Red Pill movement. The Red Pill movement has nothing to do with conservatives or liberals or anything like that. I believe originally they obviously got it from the Matrix, the blue pill, red pill. And so the Red Pill movement is about, let me put it in my own words. And again, I might not be totally accurate, but the Red Pill movement is about men and about being men and being masculine in an effeminate world that we live in. And we do live in an effeminate world. We live in a world that's, that prioritizes women and how they feel over a man. Now, again, we touched on that in that video about family court laws and how it's very much biased against men, and it has been for decades. But Mr. Daniels, the late Mr. Samuels, and hundreds of others are part of this Red Pill movement. Now, what I've found is that some of these people that are in the Red Pill movement aren't living what they're saying. Depending on what part of the real Red Pill movement they're promoting. So you have different people talking about different sub parts of the Red Pill movement. Some people are just strictly talking about men and how men should maneuver in this world. Some people are focusing on dating and those type of things. Some people are focused on culture. So they're talking about men, but they focus more on the culture or the ethnicity of the man, and not just in general. So there are various parts and pieces. You see them all over YouTube, and I have no problem with the Red Pill movement. I think in a lot of cases the Red Pill movement is good, because again, we live in an effeminate world where homosexuality, transsexuals, and everything else are trying to make you affirm their lifestyle. And I've said this in videos a long while ago. Obviously, as a saint, I don't agree with homosexuality or transgenderism or anything like that. You already know my opinion on that. If you don't, go watch one of my previous videos. We don't. It's biblically, it's not biblical, and it's so we won't get into the details on that. I have a video that explains all of that. And I don't have a problem per se with how anybody lives, but don't press that on me. Don't push that on me. And just because I don't agree doesn't mean I'm wrong. I just don't agree. But you live the way you want to live, okay? But what's happening is that a lot of the movements that are going on in our present day world are affecting masculinity. So what's happening is we're not only having to deal with homosexuals, the original gay men, as people call them now, that still call themselves men, but they just like man. And then the new gay men, or the transsexuals, that identify themselves as other than men. So it's a movement to try to not only save masculine society, but to promote it, obviously. Now, some go too far, some go over the edge. As in everything, there are fringes in every movement, and some go too far. Some go way off the deep end. Mr. Daniels, for instance, the one I talked about in 2 videos ago, is pretty much down the middle. He's not trying to promote an ethnic or cultural thing. He's just, this is what I believe, and this is what I believe men should be, and this is how I believe. He talks about all the red pill subjects. This is what, this is how men should be while they're dating. This is, how men should evaluate, prospective wives, those type of things. He goes over the whole gamut. Kevin Samuels was pretty similar. The thing I liked about Mr. Samuels was that he was very well mannered, very well dressed, and really didn't raise his voice, didn't curse, at least not that I've heard. And he was pretty even keeled. So I really enjoyed Kevin Samuels, even though a lot of his focus was dating and women would call in, they want to know where they fit on the scale from 1 to 10, and I want a high value man, how can I get one, and all the a lot of it was dating and stuff, which again doesn't concern me. Okay, but a lot of he wouldn't be talking to a lot of men. Most of his audience was women wanting to know how they can get a man. Unfortunately, most of these women were delusional because they wanted men that they couldn't get. But because of social media, they had this vision in their head of the man that they want that, according to Mr. Samuels, they'll never attain because they're not at that level, or they're not at that status, or they're too old, or they're a single parent, that type of thing. So him and Mr. Daniels are similar. You even have some women who are part of the red pill movement. Melanie King, Miss King, I believe, she's a quote-unquote Kevin Samuels disciple. And now she's gotten away from that lately because she's been so focused on the Sean Combs thing, which I think is not really, I think that was a waste of time. But I talked about that in the last video. But she's part of the red pill movement. There's not a lot of women that are part of the red pill movement, but there are some out there. And there's probably more than I don't know. And again, I don't watch a whole lot of the red pill YouTubers because most of them just, the only reason, again, that I even was introduced to Mr. Daniels was because he was talking about other issues and that he's relatively conservative, and so that's why I started watching his stuff. Again, I'm not into most of the stuff that he talked about, with the exception of current events and political stuff and whatnot, because again, that's what I can relate to. And so with Kevin Samuels, it was, I think I was introduced to him by one of my sons who watched him. And really, a lot of this red pill stuff, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is more entertainment value than actual something you can learn from. But there are some that try to make it to where you get something out of it, that you learn something, that it is some type of educational value to it, that you can, that you can use out in the real world. But most of it is entertainment value, shock value, and and those are the ones that go too far, or they're the ones that end up being hypocritical, those type of things. So again, what do I think about the red pill movement? I think it's necessary. I think it's good. I think it's for the most part promoting masculinity, and that's what we need in this world. But again, a lot of them kind of go too far, or end up being hypocrites. And what they say and what they do are two different things. So you really have to be careful. And again, most of these folks are monetized that I'm talking about. The 3 examples I gave, they're all monetized, making good money off of YouTube. That's not necessarily my space. I'm not going to get into that. Again, I'm just giving my opinion on the movement. And I know I'm late in the game. I'm behind the power curve. It is what it is. But again, I think in general the red pill movement is good. I think we need more men promoting masculinity, and even women are promoting it. Because I believe that most men want a masculine woman. And unfortunately, they're lacking in that department. And so hence the reason why we have so many masculine women, because there's no masculine men doing what they're supposed to do. Hence you have a lot of masculine women. Most of those masculine women are, come from single mothers for the most part, because the mother had to do everything herself. Whether it was her fault or not is irrelevant. I'm not going to get into that. But a lot of masculine women come from single mother homes. And so they're used to doing things on their own because that's what they got from their mothers. A lot of them didn't have fathers in their life, so the mother had to do a dual role, which women aren't meant for. So they did the best they could, or not, depending on who you're talking about. And so you end up with girls that are much more masculine than feminine because they grew up in a masculine home without a man. So you grew up with masculine women because they had to do everything themselves. They had no help. And then so you get masculine girls. It doesn't mean they don't like guys. It just means that they're used to doing things and being much more independent and not fulfilling that feminine role that women should fill. And I'm not, and some of these red pill folks believe in men doing everything and providing everything, and the women don't have to work or do anything. And some are a little bit more out. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. But are a little more flexible in being 50-50. Being much more a partnership. The man is still in charge, but they have no issues being a partner with their spouse. But in the end, the man is still the head of the house. And that's biblical. So, it just depends on who you watch. Okay? And of course, every relationship is different. And in the end, you as the husband and your spouse, or yours, the wife and you as the husband, have to come into agreement on how you are going to run, how your family is going to be structured. There's the biblical way it's supposed to be structured, and then there are many other variations. Okay? But in the end, the man is the head of the house. And there are women that don't like that. They feel that they don't need a man, and that's part of the problem. And then there are many women out there that want the man to be in charge, but they just can't find a man that's going to take charge. So there's all these variables in the red pill movement, and there are all these different opinions and different advice and all these other things. So you just, if you're into that, if you watch them a lot, you just got to find the right person for you. that's going to give you the advice that you feel is the best. Preferably somebody that talks about that's pretty much, that talks about the subjects, but it's not trying to, be, I don't even know how to put it, because there's so many people doing different things. It's difficult. You just have to find the person that you feel, it is going to, lead you in the best way individually. Obviously, you want to find one that has biblical principles and who follows biblical principles. Because if they follow biblical principles, then you're already starting off on the right foot. You're already getting a good foundation because they believe in biblical principles. Okay, and then from there, they usually voice their life experiences and their opinions. But if they're already talking biblical principles, then they're already starting off on the right foot. So those are probably the ones that I would say you probably need to follow from the get-go. Not going off this crazy stuff, and then they talk about all this stuff masculine, but then when they bring something else up, then it's not very masculine. So you just got to be careful who you listen to. And that's in anything on YouTube. You just got to be careful who you listen to. But again, I think the Red Pill movement is a good movement that promotes masculinity. And for the most part, I think most of them are doing the best that they can to try to instill, especially young men, how to be masculine, how to conduct themselves, how to find them a feminine woman, how to, lay down the expectations that you expect from the beginning, and then how to find the woman that's not going to try to take over, try to tell you, what you need to do, and all these things that, a lot of these quote-unquote independent women want to do. And the Red Pill movement, is even necessary for the modern church, because the modern church is being, in my opinion, run by women. There's very few men that are actually being men and taking charge and letting these women know that we have a role as men, you have a role as a woman. That doesn't demean you in any way. We just have our roles. And the faster that you accept your role, the better off you're going to be. Having a role as a woman is not demeaning. It's your role. And again, people have, variations of that. The Bible says the man that don't work, don't eat. Hence, that's why I work my butt off. And I have jobs that I don't like, that I hate. But guess what? I have a wife and a family to take care of. That's my responsibility. I remember me and my wife having this conversation some years back, and she was having to, remind me of this. I said, you don't have to remind me about nothing. I understand my role. My role is to work and to provide for you and the kids. That's my job. I know my job. You don't have to tell me my job. I've been suffering in this lousy job for decades because I know I have to provide for you. And I'm willing to suffer. And this is what men do. They're willing to suffer to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do or what they have to do. Men make it happen. And so this is the thing that a lot of these Red Pill movements are promoting. Making sure that these young men know what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing. Know what they're supposed to be doing. And that's it. And so, as a man, I understand my role. I understand I have to work and all that. Now, this is where the variations come in. And I can only just use me as an example because, again, this channel is about my life experience and my opinions. My wife works. My wife, we met in the military. She's been working all her life, like I've been working all my life. My wife likes to work. I have no problem with that. first got married, I couldn't afford to let my wife stay at home. But that was irrelevant because my wife wanted to work. She likes to work. Like, she likes to drive. She loves to drive. I don't have a problem driving her around, but she likes to drive. And my wife likes to work. She don't want to be at home. She likes to work. But my wife did what good wives do. She raised our sons. She did the motherly role. She still cooks. She still cleans. She does all those things. But yet she likes to work. She don't want to be at home. She likes to work. But yet and still, we, along with her, raised 3 sons that are now all grown. Did we make mistakes? I'm sure we did. Especially with our firstborn. You always make all the mistakes with your firstborn, and then you learn. When you have multiple kids, you learn. That's just life. You know, you learn. So with my firstborn, my oldest, we made a lot of mistakes that we didn't make with my second and third son. We learned. It's a process. And as their father, it was my job to teach them how to be a man. How to be masculine. Okay? I prayed that I did a good job in that. And that I provided them an example that they can use when they get married and have their own families. So, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, this red pill movement is a way for young men to learn, in my opinion. And again, not all the YouTube pages are like that. They're not all learning environments. To learn how to be masculine, how to be a man, and how to treat women, and all those things that you need to be successful as a man in the real world. Again, and that's not all channels. There's a lot of channels out there that are just there for the entertainment value. And they're not providing you any good information. So, like anything else, and like any movement, there are going to be good and bad parts about it. But I think overall, the red pill movement that in my opinion was elevated when Mr. Samuels was living. I'm sure it was happening before him, but he's kind of the thing that made it really blow up. When you know, when Mr. Samuels was doing his thing for years, he you know, from him on, the red pill movement has grown exponentially. And I think that you know, it's I think at its core, it's a good movement, and I think we can learn, that people can learn from it. And I think we just need men to take their place and take their roles. And if they did, we wouldn't have as many issues in the world. Because, as we know, women are much more emotional than men. And so because they're much more emotional, they make irrational decisions. Where most of the time men are much more rational and logical. That's just the way we're built. So, hence the reason why God made them the head. It's all about roles. It's all about accepting your roles, and it's all about actions and doing those things. Do we make mistakes? Of course we do. But overall, like I said, the red pill movement, I think, it at its core is a good movement. But again, there's always people that mess it up argue with people. I'll make my point, and that's it. It's up to you to take it or leave it. Whether you agree with it or not, that's your prerogative. But I'm not going to argue. The Bible tells us not to argue with folk. Don't go, you don't go back and forth, tick for tack with people. No. When we go out and witness, we let the folk know about the gospel, and then it's up to them whether they take it or leave it. One planteth, one watereth, and then God gives the increase. So even when we're witnessing, we have a role to play. We're not there to argue with nobody. We're there to give them the gospel. If they don't agree with the gospel, that's on them. I'm not saying you can't have a conversation if you disagree. That's not what I'm talking about. But y'all know what I'm talking about. We don't let it get to argumentative stage. Then you've lost your witness. Once you start arguing with somebody, you've lost your whole point. And that's the thing about some of these red pill YouTube pages, is they argue too much. They get these folk on here, especially ladies. They get these ladies on here that want to argue and interrupt you and do all these things, but yet you let them on your page. Well, all that is entertainment value. You're not getting anything out of it. And I don't like that. I don't like it when people don't let people talk. You don't have to agree with them, but let them make their point. But you got a lot of these YouTube pages, they love this argument. They love when people interrupt. They do all that. Then that's purely entertainment. You're not getting anything out of that YouTuber and their page. If most of their conversations or panels or whatever, all they're doing is arguing and carrying on. Arguing, interrupting folks because I'm right, you wrong, and I ain't grown enough to have a conversation. That's what that's about. So, it's something that unfortunately in this modern world we're having to do it. Who'd have thought that you had to have people out here to tell you how to be a man? That was unthinkable 40, 50 years ago. Because nobody was questioning it. You were being taught by your father how to be a man. Single parenting was extremely rare. Now it's extremely common, especially single mothers. And I'll even go this route. Even when you have a single father, your children, even your girls, are going to end up being more masculine than they need to be because there's no woman around to provide that feminine lifestyle, the feminine advice, that feminine example. So it goes both ways. So, I always try to give both sides of the story because there are single fathers out there too. Just like when I talked about in the last video about domestic violence and abuse. It's not just women, it's men too. Now, the majority of it is women, but it's men too. We have to be fair. So this is the same way. So again, I just came on here just give my little opinion about the red pill movement. It's been popular now for I'd say about a decade. Big. Like I said, again, since Mr. Samuels really came on the scene on YouTube and really started talking about that, everybody's kind of followed in his footsteps. Men and women, because there are some women red pill out there too. And their perspective is totally different than a man's, obviously, because they're women. So, it is what it is, and like I said, I'll just give my opinion on it. So, if you like this video, subscribe, hit that thumbs up, hit that notification bell, share it with somebody. If you think I'm talking some sense, or I might be able to help somebody, by all means, share it. started because I needed a place to vent and just to say what I wanted to say that you really can't say on your social media pages. And if I get monetized because of it, wonderful. 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 That would be great. But if not, so be it. This is an outlet for me. So, again, I'm appreciative of each and every one. And until next time, hope everyone has a wonderful Independence Day holiday this weekend. I might post a video tomorrow talking about it briefly. But I hope everyone has a wonderful Independence Day weekend and celebrates being in the greatest country in the world. Do we have our issues? Yeah, we got our issues and we got our problems. But ain't no better country than the United States of America. And as citizens of the United States, we should be biased and we should be saying that. Yeah, we got issues, we got a lot of problems, but we're still by far the best country in the world. So, and yeah, I'm biased. So it is what it is. But anyways, hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Three-day weekend for most of us. And if I don't come on tomorrow to say something, prayerfully, I will be back on Monday with another topic. God bless you.